Crix-9 had seen terror in 1,000 different forms across the galaxy. The 8-foot-tall reptilian bounty hunter prided himself on being the apex predator wherever he went. His crimson scales gleamed under the artificial lights of his ship's bridge as he studied the holographic display floating before him. 3 targets, 2 humans, and something else. Easy credits, he thought. Humans were soft, weak, emotional creatures. What could possibly go wrong? "Boss, we're approaching the landing coordinates," hissed his second-in-command, Vex-12. The smaller alien's 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession, a sure sign of nervousness. "The tracking beacon shows they've made camp near the old mining facility." Crix-9 laughed, a sound like grinding metal that would have made lesser beings wet themselves. "Relax, Vex. It's just 2 humans and their pet. Probably some kind of Earth canine. We'll be back on Terminus Station counting our credits before the local sun sets." Oh, how wrong he was. How spectacularly, catastrophically wrong. The third member of their hunting party, Zol-3, manipulated the ship's controls with his tentacled appendages. "Atmospheric readings are stable. No military presence detected. No weapon signatures. This is going to be easier than stealing candy from a Rigelian infant." Crix-9 nodded approvingly. The bounty on Commander Jake Morrison and Dr. Elena Vasquez was substantial enough to retire on. Morrison was wanted for allegedly stealing classified military data, while Vasquez had supposedly developed some kind of biological weapon before going rogue. The third target was listed simply as Earth mammal, species unknown, capture alive for research purposes. As their sleek black vessel descended through the planet's atmosphere, Crix-9 reviewed the mission parameters one final time. The humans had crashed on this backwater world 3 cycles ago during their escape. Long enough to get comfortable. Long enough to let their guard down. Perfect. "Landing in 30 seconds, Zol-3 announced. Switching to silent running mode. The ship touched down in a clearing roughly 2 kilometers from the target location. Crix-9 checked his plasma rifle, its familiar weight reassuring in his clawed hands. Vex-12 strapped on his stun net launcher, while Zol-3 activated his personal shield generator. Standard procedure for capturing high-value targets. "Remember," Crix-9 growled as they disembarked, "the humans alive if possible, dead if necessary. The creature definitely alive. The research facility on Kepler-9 is paying triple for live specimens." They moved through the alien forest with practiced stealth. The local vegetation was dense, providing excellent cover. Purple-leaved trees stretched toward dual suns, while bioluminescent fungi cast eerie shadows across their path. Crix-9 had hunted on dozens of worlds just like this one. The routine was always the same: locate, surround, capture, or kill. After an hour of careful movement, they spotted smoke rising through the canopy ahead. Crix-9 motioned for silence as they approached the human camp. Through the undergrowth, they could see a small clearing with a makeshift shelter constructed from salvaged ship parts. 2 figures sat around a modest campfire. Commander Jake Morrison looked exactly like his wanted poster, rugged features weathered by military service and recent hardships. His companion, Dr. Elena Vasquez, was hunched over what appeared to be a portable data terminal, her dark hair tied back in a practical ponytail. "Where's the third target?" Vex-12 whispered, his voice barely audible. Crix-9 scanned the camp methodically. No sign of any creature. Maybe it was sleeping inside the shelter, or perhaps hunting for food. No matter. They'd deal with one angry pet when the time came. "Zol-3, circle around to the north. Vex-12, take the south approach. I'll give you 60 seconds to get into position, then we move." Crix-9's tactical experience kicked in automatically. Standard intimidation protocol. They'll surrender once they realize how outgunned they are. The 2 subordinates moved into their assigned positions with practiced efficiency. Crix-9 counted down the seconds, his finger hovering over his rifle's trigger. 59, 58, 57. That's when he heard it. a sound unlike anything in his extensive experience. Not quite a growl, not quite a snarl, but something that made his primitive reptilian brain scream warnings. It came from directly behind him. Crix 9 spun around, plasma rifle raised, and found himself staring at the most ridiculous creature he'd ever encountered. It was small, maybe knee-high to a human, with black and white fur, and the most unimpressive physique imaginable. Stubby legs, a rounded body, and beady little eyes that seemed almost comically disproportionate to its size. "What in the seven hells of Targon is that supposed to be?" he muttered, lowering his weapon slightly. This was the fearsome creature worth triple bounty rates? The small animal tilted its head, studying him with what appeared to be mild curiosity. Then it opened its mouth and made that sound again. That impossible, bone-chilling sound that somehow conveyed a single, unmistakable message. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. "Jake," came Dr. Vasquez's voice from the camp, carrying easily through the forest. "I think Badger found our visitors." Badger? Crix 9 processed this information. So the creature had a name, probably some kind of earth predator, though its appearance suggested otherwise. How dangerous could something that looked like a furry footstool possibly be? Jake Morrison's response drifted through the trees, and there was something in his tone that made Crix 9's scales prickle with unease. Poor bastards, they have no idea what they just walked into. The human actually sounded sympathetic, as if he felt sorry for three heavily armed professional bounty hunters. The sheer audacity was almost insulting. "Boss?" Vex 12's voice crackled through the comm unit. "Should we proceed with the capture?" Crix 9 was about to respond when the creature took a step forward. Just one small step, but something fundamental shifted in the forest around them. The normal sounds of local wildlife fell silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. The small animal's black eyes fixed on Crix 9 with an intensity that was utterly at odds with its cuddly appearance. "You know what, gentlemen?" Jake Morrison's voice carried a hint of dark amusement. "I tried to warn the last group of hunters who came looking for us. Didn't listen either. Elena, you might want to start recording. This could be educational." Dr. Vasquez's reply was clinical, detached. Recording initiated. Subject appears to be a Crix 9 variant, approximately 8 feet in height. 2 additional unknowns flanking the perimeter, all armed with standard plasma weaponry. "Subject," Crix 9 snarled, his pride finally overriding his growing unease. "I'm nobody's subject, human. You're coming with us, dead or alive. Your choice." He raised his plasma rifle, aiming directly at the small creature between him and his targets. One quick shot would eliminate this minor inconvenience. Then they could get on with business as usual. The honey badger looked at the weapon pointed in its direction, then looked back at Crix 9. If a small furry animal could be said to shrug, this one just did. That should have been Crix 9's first warning. His second warning came when Jake Morrison started laughing. Not nervous laughter, not hysterical laughter, but the deep, genuine amusement of someone watching a comedy show where the punchline was about to arrive. "Elena," Jake called out, still chuckling, "what's our current casualty count for hunters who've tried to get past Badger?" 17 confirmed eliminations, she responded matter-of-factly. Average engagement time, 4.7 minutes. Average distance pursued by Badger after initial contact, 2.3 kilometers. Crix 9 felt a cold certainty settle in his stomach. 17? This insignificant little creature had supposedly eliminated 17 professional hunters. Impossible. Humans were notorious for their tendency toward exaggeration and outright fabrication. "Vex 12, Zol 3, converge on my position," he commanded through gritted teeth. "Time to end this farce." His subordinates emerged from their concealed positions, weapons ready. The small clearing suddenly contained 3 apex predators from 3 different worlds, all armed with military-grade weaponry, all focused on 2 unarmed humans and 1 unimpressive earth mammal. The odds couldn't have been more clearly in their favor. Dr. Vasquez tapped her data terminal. Beginning behavioral analysis. Note the subject's apparent confidence despite being significantly outgunned. Classic predator overconfidence syndrome. I'm getting real tired of being called a subject, Crix-9 growled, his patience finally exhausted. He activated his rifle's targeting system, painting a bright red dot on Jake Morrison's chest. Last chance, humans. Surrender now, or we take you back in pieces. Jake Morrison looked at the targeting laser, then at his companion, then at the small creature standing between them and 3 heavily armed aliens. Badger, he said conversationally, I think these gentlemen are threatening us. What happened next would haunt Crix-9's nightmares for the rest of his considerably shortened life. The honey badger turned around to face the 3 bounty hunters. Slowly, deliberately, with the casual confidence of a creature that had never encountered a problem it couldn't solve through direct application of violence and sheer, unhinged determination. Vex-12 fired first. His stun net launcher discharged with a sharp crack, sending an electrified mesh flying toward the small animal. It was a perfect shot, impossible to miss at that range. The honey badger caught the net. With its teeth, while it was still electrified. For a moment that stretched into eternity, the 3 hunters stared as the small creature calmly chewed through high-voltage containment netting as if it were made of particularly tough vegetation. Sparks cascaded around its head like a metallic halo, and it never even blinked. That's not possible, Zol-3 whispered, his tentacles quivering. The voltage should have knocked out a creature 10 times its size. Honey badgers, Dr. Vasquez announced helpfully, possess a natural resistance to most forms of electrical discharge. They also demonstrate complete immunity to traditional pain responses and an apparent inability to comprehend the concept of retreat. Crix-9 was beginning to understand why the research facility was willing to pay triple rates for a live specimen. This wasn't just any Earth creature. This was something that evolution had specifically designed to make the lives of every other living thing significantly more complicated. The honey badger finished its snack and looked up at them expectantly. Its expression, if a honey badger could be said to have expressions, suggested mild disappointment at the quality of the appetizer. Gentlemen, Jake Morrison called out cheerfully, meet Badger. Badger doesn't like strangers. Badger especially doesn't like strangers who point weapons at his friends. And Badger has some rather unique ideas about conflict resolution. The small creature took another step forward, then another. It wasn't running. It wasn't charging. It wasn't doing anything that could be reasonably described as threatening. It was simply walking toward them with the inevitable certainty of a natural disaster. Kill it! Crix-9 roared, his composure finally cracking. All weapons, full power, now! 3 plasma rifles discharged simultaneously, painting the forest clearing in brilliant blue-white light. The concentrated energy was enough to vaporize a battle tank. At point-blank range, nothing could survive that kind of firepower. The smoke cleared. The honey badger was still walking toward them. Its fur was slightly singed around the edges, and it looked mildly annoyed, as if someone had just interrupted its favorite television program. Fascinating, Dr. Vasquez observed, her scientific detachment intact despite the circumstances. Dense fur appears to provide significant thermal protection. Subcutaneous fat layer probably absorbed most of the impact energy. How is that thing still alive? Vex-12 shrieked, his 4 eyes wide with terror. More importantly, Jake Morrison added, how fast can you gentlemen run? Because Badger's just getting warmed up. As if responding to some invisible signal, the honey badger suddenly accelerated from casual walk to full sprint. The transformation was instantaneous and absolutely terrifying. One moment, it was a mildly annoyed small animal. The next, it was a furry missile of pure concentrated violence heading straight for them. Crix-9 had exactly enough time to form one last coherent thought. Maybe we should have researched Earth mammals more thoroughly. Then 40 pounds of muscle, claws, and complete psychotic dedication to mayhem arrived at his position and proceeded to provide a very practical lesson in why evolution had decided that honey badgers didn't need to care about anything, ever. The screaming started immediately. "Elena!" Jake Morrison called out over the sounds of chaos. "You might want to add a note to your report. Badger seems to be developing new techniques. I don't think he's done that spinning thing before." Dr. Vasquez nodded professionally, making notes on her terminal while 3 galactic bounty hunters learned that there were some predators in the universe that no amount of advanced technology could adequately prepare you for. "Should we intervene?" she asked. Jake considered this for a moment, listening to Vex 12's increasingly high-pitched wails as he tried unsuccessfully to escape something roughly 1/10 his body weight. Nah, they'll tire themselves out eventually. Besides, Badger needs the exercise. The sounds of mayhem continued to echo through the forest as part 1 of what would become known throughout the galaxy as the incident that made everyone reconsider their career choices reached its inevitable conclusion. 23 minutes later, the forest had returned to its previous state of peaceful tranquility. Birds chirped cheerfully in the purple-leaved canopy above. Small insects buzzed lazily through shafts of filtered sunlight, and absolutely nothing suggested that 3 of the galaxy's most feared bounty hunters had just received the educational experience of several lifetimes. Well, almost nothing. "Zol 3, stop whimpering and help me get Vex 12 down from that tree." Crix 9 wheezed, his formerly pristine crimson scales now displaying an impressive array of claw marks, bite, wounds, and what appeared to be small puncture holes arranged in a distinctly teeth-like pattern. His second-in-command hung upside down from a branch roughly 30 feet above ground level, all 4 of his eyes spinning independently as he tried to process what had just happened to his worldview. "Boss," he called down weakly, "I think I need a career change. Maybe something in accounting, or flower arrangement, anything that doesn't involve small furry earth creatures." Zol 3, meanwhile, had wedged himself between 2 large boulders in what he apparently considered a tactically defensible position. His tentacles trembled as he peered out at the clearing where Jake Morrison and Dr. Elena Vasquez sat calmly by their campfire, enjoying what appeared to be coffee and some kind of packaged ration. "Where did it go?" Zol 3 whispered frantically. "Where's the creature? Is it still out there? Is it watching us?" Dr. Vasquez looked up from her data terminal with the mild interest of a scientist observing particularly slow laboratory specimens. "Oh, Badger's having his afternoon nap. He gets cranky when he doesn't get proper rest. You gentlemen were quite fortunate, actually. He was feeling playful today." "Playful?" Crix 9 stared at her in disbelief. That thing systematically dismantled 3 trained military professionals using nothing but claws, teeth, and what I can only describe as weaponized psychosis. "You call that playful?" Jake Morrison chuckled, stirring his coffee with a bent piece of metal that looked suspiciously like part of a plasma rifle barrel. "You should see him when he's actually trying. Last month, a Thorganian war party landed here thinking they could collect the bounty on us. 12 warriors, full battle armor, military-grade weaponry. Badger treated it like a warm-up exercise. 12. Vex 12's voice cracked as he spoke. "What happened to them?" "Well," Dr. Vasquez consulted her notes. "Official cause of death was listed as extreme psychological trauma resulting in cardiac failure. Badger didn't actually kill any of them directly. They just couldn't handle the stress of being systematically hunted by something that treated their advanced weaponry as mildly annoying toys." Crix 9 felt his knees give way. He slumped against a nearby tree, his professional pride lying in tatters around him. "This is impossible. I've hunted across 47 star systems. I've tracked down war criminals, rogue AI units, and escaped genetic experiments. Nothing, absolutely nothing, has ever made me question my career choices quite this thoroughly. The psychological impact is quite fascinating from a xenobiological perspective," Dr. Vasquez continued, apparently oblivious to the existential crisis she was causing. "Most predator species rely on size, speed, venom, or advanced sensory capabilities. Honey badgers simply decided that caring about consequences was optional and proceeded accordingly. Jake Morrison nodded sagely. Evolution spent millions of years trying to teach every other species about self-preservation instincts. Then it created honey badgers and apparently forgot to include the manual. Badger doesn't know he's supposed to be afraid of things bigger than him. As far as he's concerned, everything in the universe exists primarily for his entertainment. But surely, Zol 3 ventured from his rocky fortress. It must have some weaknesses, some vulnerabilities we could exploit. Dr. Vasquez considered this seriously. Well, he's quite fond of sweet foods. Sometimes I can distract him with honey cakes when he gets too enthusiastic about dismantling our equipment, though that might backfire if he associates you with preventing him from getting treats. The 3 bounty hunters exchanged horrified glances. The idea of making this creature actively angry rather than merely playfully violent was enough to make hardened professionals contemplate early retirement. "How did you end up with it in the first place?" Crix 9 asked, genuine curiosity overriding his wounded pride. Jake Morrison's expression grew thoughtful. "Pure accident, really. When our ship crashed here, Badger was already living in the area. Elena and I were trying to salvage supplies from the wreckage when this Rigelian pirate crew landed, thinking we'd be easy pickings. Badger took exception to strangers disturbing his territory. The pirates lasted approximately 4 minutes," Dr. Vasquez added clinically. "Badger seemed to approve of us after that, probably because we didn't run away screaming. He's been protecting us ever since, though I suspect his primary motivation is that we provide regular meals and occasional entertainment." A small rustling sound from the nearby underbrush caused all 3 bounty hunters to freeze in absolute terror. Vex 12 immediately climbed higher in his tree, while Zol 3 somehow managed to compress himself further between the boulders. Crix 9 found himself reaching for a plasma rifle that was no longer functionally attached to anything resembling a working weapon. Badger emerged from the bushes with the casual confidence of someone returning from a pleasant walk. His black and white fur was slightly disheveled, and he carried what appeared to be the remains of some unfortunate local wildlife in his mouth. He surveyed the 3 intruders with mild interest, as if trying to remember where he'd seen them before. "Afternoon snack," Jake Morrison explained helpfully. "He'll be much more manageable now that he's had proper nutrition." The honey badger dropped his catch and approached Crix 9 directly. The massive reptilian warrior, who had faced down battle cruisers and space pirates without flinching, found himself paralyzed as 40 pounds of pure condensed violence sniffed curiously at his boots. Badger looked up at him with those same dark, unimpressed eyes. Then, inexplicably, he sat down and began grooming his paw with the casual indifference of a house cat. "I think he likes you," Dr. Vasquez observed. "That's unusual. He normally reserves that level of tolerance for pizza delivery personnel." "This is insane," Vex 12 called down from his increasingly precarious perch. "We came here to collect a bounty, and instead, we've been psychologically defeated by something that looks like it should be selling breakfast cereal on children's television programs." Jake Morrison laughed. "Welcome to Earth biology, gentlemen. We're the species that looked at a planet full of things trying to kill us and decided to make friends with the most dangerous ones. Wolves became dogs, wild cats became house cats, and apparently honey badgers become—" He gestured toward Badger, who was now investigating Crix 9's weapon holster with professional interest. "Whatever this is." "Symbiotic relationship," Dr. Vasquez corrected. "Badger provides security services in exchange for regular meals and environmental enrichment. It's quite efficient, really." Crix 9 watched in fascination as the small creature systematically examined his equipment with the thoroughness of a weapons inspector. "What's he doing?" "Quality control assessment," Jake Morrison replied. "He likes to understand how things work before he destroys them. Professional pride, you know." Badger apparently reached some internal conclusion about the plasma rifle fragments, because he looked up at Crix 9 and made a sound that could charitably be described as disappointed. It was the sound of someone who had expected better craftsmanship and found the results sadly inadequate. Even the honey badger thinks your weapons are substandard, Dr. Vasquez noted. That's got to hurt professionally. You know what hurts professionally? Crix 9 replied, his voice hollow with defeat. Explaining to our clients that we were comprehensively outmaneuvered by something that probably weighs less than my ammunition supply. Zol 3 finally emerged from his rocky shelter, moving with the cautious deliberation of someone who had learned to respect small furry creatures. What do we do now? We can't go back empty-handed. The syndicate doesn't accept failure as a business expense. Jake Morrison and Dr. Vasquez exchanged glances. Well, Jake said slowly, there might be an alternative arrangement we could discuss. What kind of arrangement? Vex 12 asked suspiciously, still refusing to leave his arboreal sanctuary. Dr. Vasquez activated her data terminal, displaying a complex star chart. We've been monitoring communications traffic from this sector. There are currently 43 separate bounty hunting teams, 17 mercenary companies, and 6 military task forces all converging on this system, looking for us. So? Crix 9 asked. So, Jake Morrison grinned. Badger's getting bored with the current level of entertainment. He keeps looking at me like I should be providing more interesting visitors. You gentlemen could help us solve that problem. The implications hit all 3 bounty hunters simultaneously. You want us to warn away the other hunters? Zol 3 asked, his tentacles curling nervously. Warning implies they might listen, Dr. Vasquez observed. Historical data suggests that the average bounty hunter's response to warnings about dangerous wildlife is to bring bigger weapons. Jake Morrison nodded enthusiastically. Exactly. Which means Badger gets a steady stream of educational opportunities. The other hunters get valuable life lessons about respecting Earth fauna. And you 3 get to leave this planet with your sanity mostly intact. And if we refuse? Crix 9 asked, though he already knew the answer. Badger, as if responding to some invisible cue, stood up and stretched luxuriously. The movement was completely innocent, but somehow conveyed the clear message that he had several more hours of afternoon energy to burn and was open to suggestions about how to spend it. Well, Jake Morrison said cheerfully, Badger does enjoy repeat customers. He's been working on some new techniques he'd love to demonstrate. The decision was surprisingly easy. 30 minutes later, 3 formerly confident bounty hunters were trudging back toward their ship, their equipment in ruins, their pride in tatters, but their lives and sanity relatively intact. Behind them, Jake Morrison and Dr. Elena Vasquez settled back into their comfortable routine, while Badger returned to his afternoon nap with the satisfied air of someone who had successfully completed another day's work. You know, Vex 12 said as they reached their landing site. Accounting is starting to sound really appealing right about now. Crix 9 nodded grimly. I hear the Centauri Syndicate needs tax preparers. Steady work, minimal chance of psychological trauma, and absolutely zero risk of encountering small furry earth creatures with delusions of invincibility. As their ship lifted off, heading back toward the relative safety of civilized space, none of them noticed the small black and white figure watching from the forest edge. Badger sat perfectly still until the vessel disappeared into the star-filled sky, then turned and trotted back toward camp with the satisfied air of someone who had just successfully defended his territory from yet another group of inadequately prepared visitors. After all, someone had to teach the galaxy proper respect for Earth's wildlife, and if that someone happened to be a 40-pound mammal with absolutely no concept of appropriate responses to superior firepower, well, that just made the lessons more memorable. The universe was a big place, full of dangerous predators and advanced civilizations. But sometimes, the most dangerous thing you could encounter was a small creature that had simply never learned to be afraid of anything, especially when that creature had human friends who appreciated its unique approach to problem solving. The galaxy would never be quite the same again.